I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the legendary commentator John Gwynne. Thanks very much for the time, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks, yes. Better than the weather, as they say. It's a Monday morning in Manchester, and the cricket's been played a few miles away from where I live, but there won't be any for the time being.
Well, we're talking around 12 hours since the final of the World Matchplay came to a close, and a new major winner in the PDC, Dimitri van den Bergh, winning the title on his debut. We just spoke off air really about that. You got to know him a couple of years ago in Australia when you did a tour over there, but how impressed were you with the young Belgian's run to the title?
I was very, very impressed, obviously by his throwing, but that didn't surprise me at all. He's been a very, very good player for a fair amount of time now, some length of time. But his composure all the way through, and one of the things that's always impressed me about Dimitri is that he has the ability to go up to the hockey. If you notice, he's perfectly still, and he looks entirely in control of himself, and that is paramount. And of course all the great dart players have been able to do that and be totally in control of themselves and not give any signs of real anxiety. Yes, he can be a little bit animated, and why not, pointing to the board and showing his emotion in his own way. But his whole demeanour impresses me.
And it's hard to believe a week or so ago, before the start of the tournament, he was 100 to 1 shot to win the whole thing. But he had gone deep in recent majors, quarterfinals at the World Championship and the UK Open, but yet to win a senior PDC title. What do you think was the catalyst behind this change in fortunes for him?
I think it was just that things went his way for a change. I mean, the first time I came across Dimitri, and indeed introduced myself to him down in the Players' Bar down in the Ali Pali, was the 2018 World Championships. So we're talking about December 2017. He knew who I was, which obviously is always nice. And we had a bit of a chat. And I was down there on that occasion working for TalkSport. TalkSport 2 were doing commentary on the World Championships, and I did a few days. And I actually did one or two of his games, and the one that sticks in my mind was the quarter-final against Rob Cross, which Cross won 5-4, a ding-dong game, an absolute belter, real quality. Both players digging in and giving their all. It could have gone either way, and in the end, Rob Cross won it by a whisker and of course went on to become world champion. It could so easily have been the other way around, and who knows, Dimitri might have been world champion in 2018 and picked up his first big TV prize rather sooner than he has done. So I knew what he could do, and I had the great pleasure just a few short weeks later, indeed, the World Championships were over less than a week when we flew out to Brisbane and undertook a 3-week tour of Queensland, the state of Queensland. There was myself, I was going out to work for Fox Sports Television, commentating on this event, and it comprised 4 events. 8 players involved. Phil Taylor was one of them. Simon Whitlock was one of them. There were 1 or 2 of the older players, golden oldies like Jamie Harvey, John Kaczynski from the United States. There was Andy Hamilton. And we had 3 weeks, and we did an event over 4 different weekends. 1 in Brisbane, 1 in Gold Coast, 1 in Townsville, where we had a wonderful time up in the north of Queensland, and 1 in Mackay on the way back to Brisbane. Dimitri was absolutely brilliant. That Devon Peterson was on it as well. It was a wonderful trip, and everybody gelled, everybody got on, and that was when I realised I got to know Dimitri very, very well, and realised that he was not just a darn good dart player, but a very, very genuine guy. Incidentally, on one of the tournaments, one of the 4 events, he met Phil Taylor in the final. It was match play, so it was legs rather than sets. It was, I think, best of 15. 7-all. No need to win by 2 clear legs, so it went to a sudden decider. And Dimitri completed a 10-darter on the bull. And I remember saying, because Taylor was on something like, let's just assume 95 or 100. And I said, there's no way Dimitri van den Berg will be going for the bull here. He'll split it, he'll go 10 double top or 18 double 16, having thrown 9 darts. And what did he do? He stepped up and in his own cool manner, he hit the bull. And when I asked Phil Taylor about it afterwards, said, was this a kind of gamesmanship? Did Phil not like it? He said, no. He said, we're out here to give an exhibition to show people what good darts is really like. He said, I applauded it. He said, I applauded it. Good luck to the lad.
We should give a word as well to Gary Anderson making it to the final despite admitting he wasn't entirely happy with where his game was at. What do you think he'll take away from the tournament?
Well, he'll take away a lot of money, 70 grand I think it is, so he'll be happy with that. He admits that he hasn't prepared for the tournament as rigidly as he might normally have done so, and that he'll go away and work. But he did say that he was having problems with the release and something wasn't quite right. I've got to say that in his earlier games, I didn't detect that. It was as the tournament went on. And he threw brilliantly through the tournament. I thought that there was one of his early games, where he couldn't miss the double 10. You could have put your life on it. By the time we'd got to the final, he couldn't hit it. And that's the difference. I think a lot of it is in the mind, you know. But Gary's a seasoned pro. I'm lucky to know him very well. He's a good friend, and I understand what he's saying. But I can't understand why his darts were going so relatively good, really good darts in the earlier part of the competition, and yet in the final it just wasn't happening. And you could see, now he's talking about getting a heavier dart because he felt he was throwing under pitching the dart, and that sometimes can be the answer. That little bit of extra weight can just give you the confidence as the dart does the work rather than your arm. Once you start working your arm, some of the accuracy goes, and it's all about smoothness of flow, of throw, I should say.
And of course, this was the first major to take place since the COVID-19 outbreak earlier this year, played away from the Winter Gardens for the first time behind closed doors. When that first got announced, that's what was going to happen with the match play this year. What did you think?
I've got to say that at the start I wondered what we were going to get. And rather like the football that's been played behind closed doors, which I enjoyed watching, it was a case of getting used to it, and I quickly got used to it. And I've got to say that I can never say that I've enjoyed a tournament more than that. Yes, it was different, but less so for the viewer. All right, we didn't have the crowd shouting and the crowd shots that you get that adds to the sort of exposure and the feel of the competition, even to the viewer at home. All right, we didn't have all that. But I thought it went very, very well. I thought the players dealt with it very, very well indeed. I think the whole setup was thoroughly, utterly professionally done. And in every single department, every single facet of that event, I've got to give credit to those responsible, to the riggers, to the television coverage, to the PDC's organisation, and obviously to the players. Brilliant. I really enjoyed it. I really did.
Yeah, there's been a lot of positive feedback for the PDC and Sky on how the event ran. And just going back to the Winter Gardens, though, I'm sure when that gets mentioned. A lot of great memories come to mind commentating there for Sky for so many years, and even being part of the title presentation in 2013. What are some of your most cherished memories from the World Matchplay and being at the Winter Gardens?
Well, I did 20 successive years from 94 to 2013 and 20 finals. And I have so many memories. It seems 5 minutes ago since the very first one in 94. And that was when Sid joined Sky. Sid's first tournament for Sky was the World Matchplay of 1994. Prior to that, there was just Dave Lanning and myself. Sid was still with the BBC. And coincidentally, Sid's last full tournament for Sky was the World Matchplay. It was also his favourite. And I'm going to be a little bit contentious here, but neither Dave Lanning nor I were consulted as to what Sid's thoughts were after he died. And I think the PDC very hurriedly decided to call the World Championships, name the trophy the Sid Waddell Trophy. Had they taken the time to talk to people who knew Sid professionally, inwardly, everything about him, I know Dave Lanning and I spoke about this, and we both said we would have said the Sid Waddell Trophy should be the World Matchplay, and that would have left the World Championship, quite rightly, to be named the Phil Taylor Trophy. Now, as it turns out, it's the other way around, and I think that the World Championship Trophy should be the Phil Taylor, and the World Matchplay should be the Sid Waddell. But let's not make an issue of it. Those are my thoughts, and I know they're the thoughts of Dave Lanning, who's sadly no longer with us. But yes, memories of the World Matchplay right from the start. I mean, playing behind closed doors at Milton Keynes, we were almost doing that at Blackpool at the start, having to drag people in because the dispute was at its height, and nobody connected with the BDO. And I'm talking about thousands upon thousands of players and supporters would have anything to do with the WDC as it was. And so it wasn't automatic, it wasn't easy to get people in. And I can recall Tommy Cox and company giving tickets away on the promenade, trying to get people to come in to the afternoon sessions in particular. But of course, after the event really became established, and eventually the differences between the two organisations ebbed away, it became a remarkably successful event, and let's hope we're back at the Winter Gardens again next year, because that, of course, is where it belongs. It's its natural home. And my personal memories, I'll never forget that first time. What good to tell you. Sid's debut. And on the Saturday of the final between Larry Butler and Dennis Priestley, it was in the evening. During the afternoon, Sky Summer Sport came live from the Winter Gardens, and Susie Dando and Paul, I know his name, were the presenters. He does the boxing now on BT, and they were the presenters. And what just at the Grand Theatre just down the road from the Winter Gardens, not the Everly Brothers, the Bachelors were on. And somebody arranged for me, Sid and Dave to go down to the Grand and meet the Bachelors. And they gave us some lessons on singing Smile for Me, My Diane. I'm in heaven when I see you smile. Oh, sorry about that. But anyway, Smile for Me, My Diane. I had a better voice in those days. And we performed it live. I can't believe this. Live on the stage in the Empress Ballroom, where the stage where the World Matchplay was being held on Sky Sport, Summer Sport in the afternoon. I think back on that very fondly, and I still hope that Sky somewhere have got a recording of it somewhere stored away in their archives. I'd love to see it again. be a good laugh. But we had fun at Blackpool, and I saw some great games and some wonderful characters. And, you know, one could write a book just about the history of the World Matchplay alone from a personal point of view. It was amazing. It's a wonderful tournament in a great setting.
We'll circle back a little bit to the BDO. You touched on him a moment ago, and Dimitri Van den Bergh, the first PDC major winner from Belgium, and the first major winner since Eric Claris won the World Masters back in the 90s from Belgium. I mean, more recently, would have probably backed Mario van den Boogaard to win Belgium's major drought. World Masters semi-final last year, World Championship semi-final this year, at the start of the year for the BDO. Two events that you followed closely, working in the commentary box for Eurosport as well.
Yes, that's right. I had the pleasure of working alongside Paul Nicholson at the Circus Tavern for the World Masters. First time I had been back there since we left after the Taylor Barney final back in 2007, and then of course at the O2 doing the World Championship. Yes, he impressed me, Van Bogenhard, and if I pronounced his name correctly, but I must say that he's not quite got the quality, and he's not quite got the self-control that Van den Bergh has.
We spoke at the World Masters and the World Championship earlier this year.
I remember, yeah.
At the time, and there was a lot of uncertainty with the BDO and their future, and it still seems to be the case, even more so now with the virus, the World Trophy, World Masters, the World Championship qualifiers this year all cancelled. How do you see the future of darts below the PDC playing out from here?
Well, frankly, I describe it as a mess, and it has been for some time. The BDO, sadly, has been gradually fading away, going into obscurity. Mismanagement has been rife for several years, and it's got worse and worse. And when a world champion wins 100,000 and only gets, I think, 23,000, it's time then to say that's enough. There are other organisations. The WDF, of course, has already been there for some years and associated with the BDO, joined at the hip, you could say. They seem to be getting themselves into a more prominent position now, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of events they're going to come up with. And then, of course, there's things like the Tri-Nations and the UK Darts organisation. They're trying to sort out the county scene, and that. It's all a very muddled mess as far as I'm concerned, and I keep my distance, to be honest. I follow what goes on, mainly on social media, but it's a pity. I saw the original split between, or dispute between the two bodies, the new body, the PWDC and the BDO, back in the late 80s and early 90s, leading to the split in effectively in 93. Although we had done, Dave Lanning and I did WDC events from 1992 in the regions on ITV in Yorkshire, Tyne Tees and Anglia television. So Sky wasn't the first venture for PDC into televised darts, but it was when Sky came in that obviously they got the boost, because they had in the same way that the BDO had a set broadcaster, namely the BBC, Sky Television, as it was, obviously promised a lot and have produced a lot over the years. But to go back to your original question, I can only see the ultimate demise of the BDO, and whatever replaces it. I hope that the WDF succeed in taking over the BDO's role successfully, because there is a place for what I call amateur darts, and I'm not being derogatory to anybody. If you've got real talent, you go to the PDC.
And we'll finish up with a couple of questions away from the darts and to the football. We know you're a big Manchester City fan as well. A huge game coming up a week on Friday, second leg in the Champions League against Real Madrid. How do you fancy your chances of getting through that and possibly going all the way?
Well, I think the fact that City have a 2-1 lead from winning in Madrid, it's easy to forget that was one of the best victories of the whole season, and they've won a lot. Incidentally, I was very pleased watching their game against Norwich, managing to get 100 goals again in the league. Although it might have been miles behind Liverpool on points. But I think most people say City is still the most exciting and entertaining team to watch. Having that goal advantage at the Etihad on August the 7th is going to be huge. And having those 2 away goals, even if Real Madrid won 1-0, City would still go through to the finals in Portugal. And obviously, there's one player in particular I want City to do well for, and that is David Silva, who has been El Majo. He's been the magician for City, and he's admired wherever the game is played. People recognise David Silva as a very special talent and a very special man as well, because he's so well liked. He's no edge on him at all. I wished I'd met him. I can't ever say that I have, but I've seen him play so many times. I'm optimistic about City getting through past Real Madrid the way at the moment that the team is playing, and it'll be very sad if Real Madrid do come to the Etihad and overhaul that deficit, but they're capable of doing it, of course. Nobody's taking anything for granted.
Well, fingers crossed for that. And lastly, we should give a plug to your new book on football coming out very soon, Soccer Satisfied, due out next month. Just give us a little bit of an overview of what the book is all about.
Well, it's really almost, I suppose in a way, it's an autobiography with football as the vehicle. I tell of how I was mad keen on 2 sports in particular as a child, as a young child in Shropshire, where I was born and brought up in my early years, a country yokel. Football and cricket were my sports. I fell in love with them very early doors, and both have played a huge part in my life. And through the vehicle of football, where I watched my village team, and I graduated to watch Shrewsbury Town in the old 3rd Division South before my father secured a job in Manchester, and we moved up like the hillbillies, because I was one of 6, second eldest, from rural Shropshire up to Manchester, which was a huge change, you can imagine. And but for me, I couldn't wait to get there, because I was going to watch Lancashire in the summer, and I was going to watch Man United in the winter, spend most of my time in M16, Manchester 16, Old Trafford district. And in the end, my mate from school, Charlie Hadfield, took me to Main Road to watch City and Portsmouth in 1957, and I became a Blue. And in that same year, I saw the end of 57, I saw my first ever Manchester derby, and it just, the magic of that has stayed with me all my life. 2-2, a pulsating game in front of 70,000. But why I emphasise that is that it's in my book. The whole 6 weeks later, so many of that United team had perished at Munich. I was 12, and even now, 63 years later, I can't talk about it without getting emotional. So that's in the book, and all sorts of things. How playing amateur football, how I wore Jimmy Greaves' shirt. The great Jimmy Greaves. We got Tottenham's kit because our manager he worked at Umbro in Wilmslow, just south of Manchester, and he worked at Umbro, and Spurs cancelled the kit because they got knocked out of the what UEFA Cup what we call now the Europa League. And in fact, it was Man United who knocked them out. So they cancelled their kit that they thought they were going to need for the next round. And our manager said, lads, we've got new kit next week. We're changing colours. Why? Spurs have cancelled their kit. We're having it. We don't look a gift horse in the mouth. So I wore the number 10 shirt, or number 8, I think it was 8. And somebody said to me, Jimmy Greaves would have been wearing that. Gwynne, you've got a lot to live up to. If you don't score today, you're letting the whole team down. We had some fun. And I played Sunday League football and local football on a Saturday as well. I was football night through the winter, and I played cricket in the summer. Wonderful. So that thread goes through it, and it's all about City, it's all about City, it's all about United, it's all about United. All the great teams that I've experienced, like the Spurs double winning side of 61, the Arsenal double winning side of 71, the great Wolves that I saw with Billy Wright when I was a kid, the great teams, the great City team of Joe Mercer and Malcolm Allison, the great United teams, of course, of not just Matt Busby, but later on Sir Alex Ferguson, whom I met many times, and I've got a chapter on my encounters on the after-dinner circuit with Sir Alex Ferguson. Some great memories. There's sad moments as well, like when I lost my wife, and all sorts of things in the book that I hope people will enjoy. It's called Soccer Satisfied. I left teaching, about my teaching career as well, and I left teaching after 20 years back in 1987 to take up a full-time role in the media and commentating on Lancashire cricket and on local football and rugby league, and then the title of the book comes from my having done well over 20 years on Soccer Saturday for Sky, and that came about through Jeff Stelling being on the fronting the darts. I was talking about the World Matchplay at Blackpool, and it was after heavy night's work at the Winter Gardens. We were enjoying a pint, a few of us, in the Imperial Hotel where we were staying, and Jeff said, what are you doing in the winter? And I said, I'm not doing anything. I've been doing football for Radio London, doing the London teams up north for 3 years, but they've stopped doing it, so I'm without work in the winter at the moment. He said, well, we'll sort you out, John. And he surely did, and got me on Soccer Saturday, and I've been doing it ever since. So Soccer Satisfied obviously is a play on that, and Jeff has been good enough to do me a foreword, which, to be honest, is really, really good, and I'm very proud of that.
Well, John, it's always a great pleasure to get to catch up with you, and wish you all the best with Man City next week, and of course the book release next month as well.
Well, thank you very much, and good luck to all our listeners.